Well, hello everyone. So let's get started on our first installment of videos for this week. We are going to start with some basics around managers and economics, okay? And we're going to dig a little deeper into some of the fundamentals of what demand, supply, and equilibrium means. And we will close this video with just a deeper touch on demand. We'll go from there after that. Okay, so let's go. First question you should ask, like with everything else in your career and your life, is why should you do it? Right? So the question should be asked, if you haven't, as to what and where would you put economics into this entire spectrum of why you're here for your MBA program, right? And I will repeat this throughout the 8 weeks that we're here. Economics by itself does not give you an edge in your career. But without economics, there is bound to be some gap in your portfolio of your understanding of business, understanding of what to do, understanding of responding to competition, etc. Okay. So essentially, and you'll get more insights as we go through these weeks, you will understand how economics is important for you to understand your business's competitive advantages, your ability to respond to market changes, your ability to understand your customers' thoughts and preferences, your ability to understand how your own operations functions, and essentially the bottom line, right? How do you improve your business's profitability? Okay, we'll go through a lot more in the coming weeks. Okay, so here's the textbook definition of micro and macroeconomics. Those are the two buckets of economics that we're going to cover. Okay, overall in this in the 8 weeks. So as you can see on the left-hand side, microeconomics is a branch of economics that analyzes the decisions that individual consumers, firms, and industries make, okay, as they produce, buy, and sell goods and services. So the key there is individual consumers, firms, and industries. So it's micro. That's where the micro part comes. As opposed to the macro, that focuses on the overall level of economic activity, changes in the price level, unemployment, all of those big picture things, right? So that's why you heard the term zoom in and zoom out. The zoom in piece is the microeconomics at the individual level. Zoom out at the overall economy of, say, the United States, it's the macro. Now that's the textbook definition. Here's the easy way for you to understand micro and macro. Okay, assume you are in a sailboat competition. Okay, just assume you are in a sailboat competition, and your job is to maneuver a very complex boat through the seas to the other side. And there are multiple people competing. They all have their boats, etc., etc. You can bring whatever boat you have, right? How successful you are in this endeavor, in this competition, really depends on two things actually. First is your understanding of your boat and your abilities and capabilities to navigate your boat. Does that make sense? So, how well do you know your boat? How well do you know its maneuverability? How good is its engine? Right? How well can you maneuver as things move or a competition comes across? Right? Where do you slow down? How do you turn the thing? That makes a huge difference in how well you do in this competition. Fair? Now, there's another angle to this that you have to understand as well. That is the conditions in the sea. Make sense with me? So the first part is what you want to think about as microeconomics. The second part is macroeconomics, right? So in microeconomics side of this, the analogy, each competitor has their own decisions to make, right? They have to decide when to fasten up, when to slow down, when to twist, when to turn, how to use the boat. Every competitor in this has to make those set of decisions. But there are certain set of things that affects everybody. So if the sea is extremely choppy, for example, that affects everyone. Is that fair? So if you had the greatest boat ever, it still doesn't matter. A choppy, windy sea is going to have an impact on you. So how well you compete, how well you come out on the other side is dependent on both. How well you are able to grasp the your own capabilities and your own decisions, right, on the boat and maneuvering and all, as well as your understanding of the macro situation, right? If it is choppy, what kind of things do you know it's going to be choppy? If it is going to be choppy, what do you do now, right? That's the way to think about micro and macroeconomics. So now, how do you bring it back to your job, your company, your decision making, right? The way to think about that is throughout this first few weeks, you will hear the example of a pizza maker, right? You'll hear it in other videos too. Assume you are a local pizza company. You run a local pizza company. Okay. It is extremely important for you to know who are your customers, right? How do they make decisions? What kind of things drives them? What do they like? What do they not like? And then you have to make your own decisions on, okay, what type of pizzas do you produce, right? What type of stores do you have? What type of, how many employees do you want to hire? Those are all individual level decisions. Make sense? But it would be foolish for you not to have a good sense of the macro stuff. Fair? So if you're going to start something in Omaha and you know that unemployment rate, for example, right now in Omaha is extremely low, would that make a difference on how quickly you start this or how many pizzas you offer? Or take the other side. If you know you are in a city where unemployment rate is extremely high, would you do something different in terms of what you offer, maybe the price points you offer? There's a lot of things you got to determine based on the macro level items as well. Make sense? That is why you have to learn both micro and macro as a decision maker in your company. Your success depends on your ability to make decisions and understand the decisions being made by your customers, your decisions that will drive the products or services you offer, right? The micro part, as well as how to incorporate into your overall endeavor the macro events, the macro themes that is happening around you. Okay, so that's the reason to learn micro and macroeconomics. Make sense? Fair enough? Okay, so then we talked a little bit about this already. What is the microeconomic influences? What are the microeconomic influences on managers? How consumers behave affect their revenue, right? If the consumers start purchasing more, your revenues go up. So you want to know what kind of influences drives a consumer to make their purchasing decisions. Microeconomics also deals with your own production, right? What is affecting your input prices? Maybe the tomato prices are going up. How does that impact the number of pizzas maybe you make, right? Market and regulatory environment. All of those things are microeconomic themes that a manager has to understand for you to be successful. Okay, so then you got a sense of what micro is, what macro is. You understood why it's important for a decision maker to understand both micro and macro and incorporate that into their decision making. Let's dig a little bit deeper into what market demand is. Okay, demand. It is nothing but the number of units of a good or service that buyers are willing and able to buy at various prices when other factors like buyers' incomes, tastes, and preferences in the price of goods related in consumption are held constant. So again, that is the textbook definition of what a market demand is. Okay. The easiest way again to understand this is, first thing to understand here is it is very much external to you. Meaning, it is very much what your customer is going to do with your products, goods, or services. Okay, so let's go back to the example of you are running a small pizza company. So question is, demand essentially is how many units of pizza are your customers willing and able to buy at various prices. That's essentially what demand is. And you can observe it using your historical sales. You can do some projections, but take a very simple example. Let's say one slice of pizza and the amount buyers are willing and able to pay. Let's say if you price your pizza at $1, you sell 5 units. Okay? If you price your pizza at 2, how much will it sell? If you price your pizza at 50 cents, how much will it sell? That is essentially market demand. As you move the prices around to the customer, how will the customers respond to those prices? That is demand. And then, of course, there's that caveat that you hold certain things constant, like buyer's income, taste and preferences, price of goods, etc. Okay, and we will go into in depth on each one of them in a second. Let me also cover the basics on supply and equilibrium, and then we will pause there. Okay, market supply is the number of units of a good or service that businesses are willing and able to produce at various prices when other factors like resource prices, production prices of good related in production are held constant. Okay, what does this mean? Now, remember, demand is everything about your customer, how they respond to change in prices. Supply is all about you internally making decisions about your offerings based on the price in the market. Okay, so let's go back to the example of pizza, right? Let's say the market price for pizza is $1. If it is $1, how many pizzas are you willing and able to produce at that $1 based on your profit and revenue and your everything that you have to make a call on, right? Because you have to look at the market prices as well to make sure that you are able to be a successful business. If the market price is $2, there is a possibility that you will produce a different amount, and we'll again go into different examples there. If the market price is only 50 cents, you will probably be supplying a different amount. That is essentially it. At various market prices, how many units of your good or services are you willing and able to produce? So remember, with both demand and supply, the common theme is market price. With demand, you're looking to understand how customers react to changes in price. With supply, you're trying to understand how you are going to change your production in response to change in price. Okay? And finally, equilibrium. At some point, okay, the supply and demand meets at an equilibrium at which point we get the point of a market equilibrium price and a market equilibrium demand and supply. Okay, it's a point where the demand meets supply, and that's all you got to know at this point. We will walk through certain examples down the line, but in due time in efficient markets, the price will move up and down based on supply and demand, and it will hit some sort of an equilibrium. Doesn't mean that equilibrium will last forever. It might change when demand or supply changes, but then a new market equilibrium comes across. Okay, so that's, again, we'll go into more details on all of these things. So summarizing what we learned today, we started off with components of economics, right? Micro and macro. We talked about how to distinguish between those two with an example of a sailboat, right? Your boat decisions is micro. What happens to everybody, like a choppy water, is macro. We looked at why it's essential for managers to learn micro and macro economics. We looked at what are some of the basics of demand, how demand is about the customer, and it is reflective of customers' response to change in prices by changing their quantity demanded. We looked at the basics of supply, so also reflection on price, but this time it's about how you, the producer, produces the number of units, and then equilibrium. Okay, we'll come back next time and we will go into details on the factors that we have to hold constant for demand.